Hi, sweeties, how are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim or Cimnanya, and thank you all so much for the love and support. Hope you all are doing great. So there is this video, going around, and people are commending the young lady for what she did. She's a white woman. I think she had a gig with a brand, makeup brand, more like a closed door meeting, right? She actually got there only to find out that it was 50 something people on ground, to find out that there is no black person out of that 50 something. And she asked them why there is no black person. And, they started telling stories. And she said, I will not stay for this summit, because there should be diversity, which I also agree with, right? She left and she said, replace me with a black person, which they actually did not do. And she came back, called them out, and now people are asking them questions. And the reality is that they do not include black people. Most brands do not include black people. And I am not going to beg people to include me, right? I hope black content creators, especially the ones that are into makeup, they will still find I hope they find other ways too to make money and not depend on some brands, because they are not for us and they are not like us, right? So what she did is great, though I still do not trust them. Let's get into this video.
So I got invited on a global brand trip of 57 people and not a single creator was black, and I kind of want to talk about it and explain why this is so wrong. For anyone who doesn't know, a global trip basically means that people come from different parts of the country together. So you would expect, with 57 people from all different walks of life, that there would be black people that would be in that room. Of course, I never actually went on the trip. I actually ended up getting uninvited after I spoke about the reasons as to why this was wrong and why this needed to be fixed. I actually got told, we hope we have a better experience with you next time, which honestly made me howl, because I made it very clear that I wouldn't be going on the trip, nor would I be working with them again if they didn't fix this issue. I gave the brand many opportunities to show that they were inclusive, including my last message that I sent to them that they didn't actually reply to, that said if they were replacing me, that I would hope that they've listened to what I said and replace me with a black or brown creator that they have worked with. Obviously I understand that that's still no means good enough, but I thought, or I hoped, that it would be a step in the right direction, with the very limited time that they had, that it would help. They told me that they didn't purposely exclude any black or brown creators, and just that it happened to be how they came to the list was how people responded the fastest. They very clearly said to me that if I think that this is discrimination, then I've misunderstood the situation. Last week, unfortunately, the trip went ahead, and they decided to replace me with yet another white girl. I know that I wasn't originally on the original list of people that were invited on the trip. I know that I was later added because there was a male creator that dropped out, and I then got added in his place, which is ridiculous in its first instance, when that then meant there was no other male creators on the list. My space then got replaced after I complained with a white girl. However we got here, I really wanted to make this video for any brands or any of the creators that are watching this, that are in these spaces, that can use their voices to make a difference in this. But as a community, we really need to stand together to stop this from happening. As I explained to the brands, diversity and inclusivity should be a part of your strategy from the start. It should be deep rooted in you, so that you don't just come to this list. It shouldn't be a second thought. It should be part of the list from the start. I truly believe that if a brand has to put deep thought and so much effort into being inclusive, then it's clearly not part of your core values, and you really need to make a change to make sure that it is part of that, and that be, in your marketing, your products, your trips, literally everything, your staff, your people who are higher up in your company. Representation is so important for so many reasons, but if you're watching this and you're not quite sure, then one of the reasons that I can explain it quickly and easily is that representation means that you can see people in a place that you would like to be at, and people who are aspiring to be in a certain place, you know, that doesn't even mean that it has to be beauty, has somebody that they can see that represents them in that space. Without representation, it's hard to aspire to be somewhere where your community doesn't feel like it's accepted. Creators who are given these opportunities, we need to stand together. Change won't happen if we just let these brands fly under the radar. And I believe that we should all be making a conscious effort to make sure that our friends feel included. I genuinely do believe that you need to ask yourself, what is more important? Is it these opportunities and going on these lavish brand trips? Or is it being an accomplice to a whole community and not feeling like they're worthy, and also like you call these people your friends? I know there's a lot of negativity on this app at the minute, and I'm genuinely not trying to be a part of that. I am trying to do something positive to help make change. Like, so let's stop complaining about what we're receiving in a mystery box and actually start making videos about serious things that actually matter in the world to help evoke some change, to actually make a difference in the world. Because I actually can't believe that I'm sat here making another video like this again. But I genuinely do believe in being part of that change, and I will never shut up about this. I genuinely think that we all need to do better. So I got invited on a global brand trip of 57 people, and not a single creator was black.
We are coming into 2025 and you're telling me that a massive beauty brand still can't understand the concept of diversity in the beauty industry. It's giving Pink Honey brand trip all over again. Are you freaking serious? How is this still happening? So I saw Eleanor's video, and it's basically her saying that she was invited to a brand trip where she found out that the guest list for the brand trip did not include any black or brown people. Let me repeat. A massive beauty brand, I think, is currently hosting this brand trip. I know the brand that she was talking about, but I'm not going to talk about it. Is currently doing a brand trip, and they've invited no black people, no brown people. Oh my god, props to Eleanor, like massive. She got invited, she found out the guest list, and she asked the question, why is there no black or brown people? And she got uninvited for it. To make things worse, how does she get replaced with another person that was also not black or brown? Did brands learn nothing from that Pink Honey brand trip? And it's not even about the Pink Honey brand trip. Like, it's not that. Did you know what the funny thing is? I have been to a few brand events already in my, like, micro-influencer, like, time, whatever. And tell me why the small beauty brands that I've been invited to events for, tell me why they have smashed it every single time I've gone to that event in regards to diversity and inclusion and just, like, everything. Compared to the bigger, like, massive beauty brands on this planet. How are the small brands getting it constantly right and the big brands are getting it so wrong? Big beauty brands, they have more resource, they have more budget, they have more intel to get things like diversity and inclusion and involving, like, you know, BAME people and people from all walks of life basically involved in your brand's morals, in your brand's values. I feel like it just, like, gets to be so much, as with it would anyone, but especially for a brown person who isn't the classic, you know, white, maybe blonde, like, skinny girl. I damn well know that I will never get the same opportunities if you compare me to, like, another TikTok profile that has the same following as me and the same engagement, but, like, let's say that she's, like, white and blonde or whatever. Just being this and looking like this puts me into a freaking, like, she's not important, let's not think about her. It's clear to see with beauty brands like this one, there's so many brands that, like, don't care. Like, I don't understand why it's so freaking hard. How are we going into 2025 and things like this in the beauty industry and, like, the beauty content world, whatever, is still happening? Give a girl, a boy, whoever, and every other person that deserves a chance. Open your eyes, beauty brands, because there are way more people out there in the world other than your white skinny females, okay? Sorry, it's getting a bit intense. We gotta go.
Now, did y'all hear about what happened to Elanor Wood, this young lady right here? Okay, so Elanor was invited to a global grand trip with 57 influencers that were invited as well. Well, upon arriving, Elanor realized that there were no black and brown creators there. So what she did was she voiced her opinion, and that's why. Out of 57 people, or 57 influencers, y'all, not one black or brown person was invited. Well, don't you know that they kicked her out and replaced her with another white woman? And she even said that she voiced her opinion after they kicked her out and said, if you're replacing me, I would really, really, really want you to replace me with a black or brown person. Y'all just listen to her.
I got invited on a global brand trip of 57 people, and not a single creator was black. And I kind of want to talk about it and explain why this is so wrong. For anyone who doesn't know, a global trip basically means that people come from different parts of the country together. So you would expect with 57 people from all different walks of life that there would be black people.
I just want to say, Elanor, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you for standing up for us. Because one thing Elanor did not have to do was speak up and say something about it. But she did. And this is what you call a real influencer, girl. You definitely deserve my follow. And I advise all of my sisters to go follow Elanor, because she got our back, baby.
Imagine getting kicked out of a beauty brand trip because you brought up the fact that why aren't there any black creators on this trip? This is Elanor, and she shared that she was invited on a global brand trip and there's 57 people, and she's like, and not one black or brown creator. So she asked, like, hey, what's going on here? This isn't right, you know? And they basically booted her off, told her that hopefully they have a better experience with her next time. They also told her, if you think we're discriminating, that that's not the case, and she's totally misreading the situation wrong. And the way that they got their people was from, like, whoever responded first type of thing. So she says, she told them, whoever you replace me with, make it like a black or brown creator. Do you think they did that? No. She said they sent another white person in her place. Or put another white person in her place. She said she wasn't originally supposed to be on the list. It was a male creator who dropped out. And then, you know, she got put on. But that was one of the first things she noticed, like, where are the black creators? And it got her kicked off. And if you want to know who the brand is, this is who they are. They actually always had a lot of good reviews. And they do have black and brown creators who promote them. So what's going on?
A creator named Elanor Woods is going viral because when she noticed that a brand invited her on a trip alongside 56 other influencers and none of the 57 influencers were black, she asked the brand to be more inclusive. She withdrew when they weren't, and she even asked them to replace her with a black creator and noted that they didn't. I love the fact that she's inspiring other white people to push for more diverse representation and the opportunities that they're included in. And so I wanted to do a short video to talk through what the prep work, the conversation, and even some of the responses you can expect might look like to facilitate a conversation for someone who's never had a conversation like this. I'll start here. If you feel like you don't have the words or the tools, or it's not intuitive, or you don't want to get it wrong, how to ask for an opportunity to be more racially inclusive, ask yourself how you would phrase it out if you were talking about gender inequality. One thing that I have found is that many of my contemporaries, if they saw a panel that was all men, or an opportunity that was all men, or a board that was all men, or a project that was all men, it would feel really reasonable to them to say, I noticed that this opportunity is all men, and I wanted to see if we could add some women to the panel. Again, that's what Elanor did. She said, I noticed that these are all white creators. Can we have black creators to the trip? Now, in my experience in the 21st century, the organizers, for the most part, are going to tell you that they tried. And when they tell you that they tried, their response is going to vary across the spectrum from I tried and I know I'm failing and this is really important to me and can you help me? This really sort of genuine response, all the way down to a really defensive, like, we did reach out to black people and they weren't interested. This temperature check is important, and I'm going to come back to that. But in this instance, where the organizer tells you that they tried and they failed, the most important thing that you can have done is pre-prep work. And the pre-prep work is to have already diversified your network so that you have recommendations of black people and people of color in your industry, in your community, in your network, who you can recommend for these roles. I was asked if I wanted to be submitted for a panel earlier this year, and I said I'd love to. Who else is being submitted? The entire panel was white, and I said I have a policy. I won't be submitted on a panel unless we have at least one black speaker. And they said, great, who can you recommend? And I had a list of people to recommend. Now, this goes back to the pre-prep work. If you have no black people in your network, we should work on that. But at the very least, you should have black thought leaders in your space, whether, again, that's your industry or that's your community, who you follow, who you enjoy learning from, so that at the very least, you could say, while I'm not personally connected to so-and-so, I love their work. And then you can take the extra step of finding their contact information and passing that on. Now, the reason why it's preferable if this person is in your network is that you can have had a conversation with them about the kinds of opportunities that they're looking for so that you're not wasting their time, right? So I have more senior people in my network who are only interested in paid opportunities. I have more junior people in my network who would be interested in exposure. Going back to the temperature check that I mentioned a moment ago, when your goal is to help diversify a project, an event, an opportunity, one of the things that you should be cognizant of is that if you are asking someone to be the first and only person of color in a space, that's a particular kind of opportunity. And so another great thing about if you're connecting with people who are already your friends, who are already in your network, who you have candid conversations with, is that you can have already had a candid conversation with them about if the source of opportunities are being first and only, is that something they're interested in? And again, what are their specifications around that? Is it the fact that the organizer is trying to and hasn't successfully diversified the event? Is it that they'll be first and only at any event because it's important to them that they're there? Is it that they're not interested in being first and only? They want to make sure that there's at least 13% representation of Black individuals before they participate in an event. Is it going to be a differentiated price point? Like, you want to have had these conversations. I did join a network recently that's relatively homogenous, more so than my other communities. And a part of that was me having a long conversation with the head of this community around the diversity in the community, being aware of their commitment to diversifying. And as I reached out to my friends to ask if they wanted to join, one of the things that I talked to them about when I talked about the specs of the community was the fact that, and the community is actually diversified greatly since I first joined, which again is attributed back to the founder and the fact that they were really sincere in this. But I had a conversation of, do you want to enter a space where you're going to be on the front lines of diversifying this community? Or at this stage in your career, are you only interested in joining communities where that scaffolding has already been built? Right? Because we have to hold space for the fact that creating an opportunity is the right thing to do. And it doesn't mean that that's going to be the right opportunity for any particular individual. And if we honor them and we honor their humanity, we hold space for the fact that it's not an automatic yes just because you went out of your way to include them. And that's why you need a list and a network and a group of different people who are looking for different things if your goal is to help diversify spaces in your industry. Next, you need to be prepared for the backlash that you're going to get and all of the naysayers. And I'm going to actually split this into a few different categories. The first group of naysayers are people who are just out and out racist, either like on the surface, or they have internalized racism. And those are the people who are going to say things like, we shouldn't be tokenizing people and adding them in. And I would be offended if someone reached out to me just because of the color of my skin. And we need to go with the person who's most qualified. I like starting with questions in these scenarios. Things like, what makes you assume that extending an invitation to a person of color means that they're less qualified? Another red flag here is if someone uses the term affirmative action, odds are that they're going to then share a parable of a time that they heard of a situation where someone who is less qualified got a role because of the color of their skin. And I like to do an Uno reverse in those situations. I like to concede that 110% based on that story, there is someone who is underqualified in their role. And the person who was underqualified in that role was the hiring manager, because the hiring manager didn't have the training, tools, awareness, or capacity to go out and find the appropriate candidates to interview for the role, because the hiring manager had their own internalized racism to where they didn't know that there were Black people or people of color who could be qualified for the role more so than any of the white applicants, because the hiring manager didn't take the time to build the networks or the structures that they needed to build in a proper candidate base. Right, so the people who are just trying to be racist, we just point out the flaws in their reasoning. Then you will have white people who will tell you that you're tokenizing Black people and people of color by reaching out to include them on a panel. And again, what I like to do in this instance is move back to the gender argument and say, have you ever been in a situation where you saw a panel that was all men? And in that situation, would you ask them to add a woman? And then the next kind of backlash that you'll receive will be from some members of the Black community. And you hold it and you sit with it and you take it, because no community is a monolith. And I'll give you a real life example. There was a TikTok mom influencer trip 1 or 2 years ago that was very homogenous. There was not an equitable representation of Black moms and moms of color. And I'd done a video that said, where are the Black moms? And my comment section was fractured. There were some people who said, we really appreciate you advocating for us. Again, because I take the position that influencers are business owners, and on business trips, there are opportunities to monetize, whether those are explicit opportunities. So when you look at the metrics of the content that's created on a trip like that, or whether it's those behind closed doors golf course opportunities of people discussing the behind the scenes of where they get the brand deals and who knows this and who knows that and who tried that access to that valuable information for business owners that becomes gated when the social group is homogenous. And then I have people come through my comments and say the Black moms are marked safe, and who are you to be having this conversation? And that's okay. You sit with the feedback. And then back to the conversation that I had earlier, if your network is truly diverse and you have genuinely close Black friends, you can call them up and say, do you have capacity for me to ask you a question about a point that I was trying to advocate on, but I'm not sure if I missed the mark? So anyway, shout out to Elanor Woods. Shout out to anyone who is trying to diversify events in their industry. And if there's any way that I can be supportive to you in this, if this is new to you, I'm happy to make more videos.
This influencer was uninvited from a global brand trip because she called out that all 57 influencers attending were white and there was not a single Black person on the guest list. So Elanor Wood just posted this video, and she said that once she found out that everyone on the guest list was white, she said she called it out with the brand and said why that was a problem. And she said that the brand responded by uninviting her and saying that it was just a coincidence because all the 57 people on the list had just responded the fastest. And Elanor said that she told the brand that if she was going to get uninvited from the trip, then replace her with someone that is a Black or brown creator. But not only did they uninvite her, they replaced her with another white girl. And this situation just reminds me exactly of the Pink Honey drama that happened last year. Well, last Christmas, Pink Honey did a really festive influencer trip and every single creator there was white. Elanor didn't call out the name of the brand in the video, but it's highly suspected that it's a skincare brand called Pe0ple. And the influencers that supposedly went on the brand trip that she's talking about, people have flooded in the comments by saying that this is the all-white brand trip. Not only for just attending the brand trip, but obviously attending it and not drawing attention to the fact that there was no diversity and no representation at all across 57 people on a global brand trip. But honestly, videos like Eleanor's just show why it is so important for influencers themselves to question the brands and hold them accountable as well. Creators have a right to know who else is attending the event, and obviously if the brand doesn't care about diversity and inclusion, then why would you want to align yourself with that? Let me know what you guys think.
Trip of 57 people and not a single creator was Black.
This is such a huge issue in the industry and we need to talk about it. As a woman of colour who owns her own marketing agency, diversity and inclusion is at the forefront of every decision that we make. I'm not naive to the fact that not everyone thinks this way, and especially with racial bias, particularly here in Australia, it is a very real thing that diversity and inclusion kind of falls to the bottom of the pile. I wanted to show you an example of how you can use your voice to positively advocate for change, even if it is not within a company or something that you're working on as an influencer or creator. I was recently invited to an industry event, and out of a panel of 12 speakers, only one speaker was visibly diverse, so I said something. I start off the message by being really polite and obviously thanking them for inviting me and thinking of me for the event. Then I go into saying, however, I noticed that the current lineup lacks diverse representation and I wanted to share this feedback in the spirit of fostering inclusivity. I believe a more varied panel could bring unique perspectives that enrich the conversations, making the event more impactful for attendees of all backgrounds. I then go on to say, please know that this feedback comes from a place of support as I'm keen to see the event continue to grow in its reach and influence. Thank you again for the invitation, and I hope to see how the event develops to include a broader spectrum of voices in the future. I could have chosen to say nothing about this event and not responded, however, I wanted to make sure that they knew that I could see that there was a problem with the event. There are so many ways that we can advocate for diversity and inclusion, and it doesn't have to be done in an aggressive way. As brands, as influencers, as human beings, we need to advocate and speak up and do something about this issue. We have to be the change that we want to see. So I really encourage you, if you're in a position of power or not in a position of power and you see something, say something.
I got invited on a global brand trip of 57 people and not a single creator was Black. And
this is a perfect example of how easy it can be to be an ally. She saw a problem, called out the problem, gave them an opportunity to fix the problem. They didn't. And she said, cool, we're going to move on. I don't need to work with you guys anyway. And now it's called out the problem in a different scale. Done. That's how easy it can be. And what's crazy is some people will sit there and think, oh, but what if I'm uninvited? What if I can't work with them? Why would you still want to work with them when you see how they treat other people? This is how you start on business. I don't know, I didn't know you before, but guess what? I'm following you now. Stand on business. Just because a problem doesn't affect you directly doesn't mean it's not still a problem. And I think that's what a lot of people with platforms need to understand. Because it is that simple. It is that simple, the way she just said it. To notice it and be like, this is weird. A lot of people will choose themselves and constantly be like, well, what about my journey? What about what I need? Not all opportunities are good opportunities. But if you feel like you can put racism aside, if you feel like you can put other things aside just for your own benefit, that's something you need to unpack with yourself. And to have the company gaslight her in real time to be like, no, you're misunderstanding the situation. It's just about who responded the quickest. And they all happen to be white, even with your replacements. You can see what they were doing. So you can imagine when POC creators are saying, hey, this stuff looks weird. And then the companies go, no, you're just misunderstanding the situation. They're doing that same gaslight shit in real time to the white girls. What? I say what, but I'm not shocked. Anyway, clearly keep starting on business, and more creators need to start starting on business this way. Thank you.
So this is all I got from this video, and I recommend this because sometimes I still do not trust them, but what she did is absolutely great, because sometimes you already have to stand up for one another. And the fact that this is not the first or second time, something like this has been happening. I have also seen brands that probably did, and did not include Black people, still send that those things they knew that they created, to Black people. They know they make, let's say this lip gloss, let's say this is a blush or something. They made this and they know it is not for a Black person. They'll intentionally send it to Black people to see, how do people do that? We've been saying that DEI is very important. Diversity is very important when it comes to products, right? But this particular one, they had something like a summit, and she went there without seeing any Black person represented. And she told them that she cannot do it. And she told them, if I am going to leave, they kicked her out. And she said, you can replace me. Okay, she told them to replace her with a Black person, which they absolutely did not. And when she left and called them out, and that was when they issued apology. The truth is that they are not sorry too. And I am sure Black people are not even bothered, because the things Black people have been dealing with for days now, or it's something that I am sure Black people are not paying attention to it. Because one thing I understand is that if this particular people think you cannot make money out of them, there will be another door or somewhere else, Black content creators that are also into makeup, can also make money, right? But this also tells Black people that they do not include you in most of the things. And I love the fact that they do not ask anymore, because I remember the one that happened last month, right? A big brand sent something to Gloria, if I am not mistaken her name, and everything they sent to her was not for a Black. They sent something, they said it's for a Black person, and she gave them their honest review and told them, send all these things back to factory, because they are not meant for people that look like me. And the fact that they will use a Black model too, right, to convince you that they try this on a Black model and it's worked perfectly, when they do not use the same shade that they put on they sent to you. They do not use the same shade they sent to you, and the one they use for the model will never be the same, but they continue to lie. But there is something that I have also learned to understand about all these brands. Majority of these brands rage bait, right? Because they feel like sometimes, how do we make money? Excuse me, instead of placing ads and all that, they send you the wrong brand, sorry, wrong products. And by the time you probably call it out, right? And then if you are big, and then other people will start, okay, let's try this and see what it looks like, And then you find out that this is not meant for a black person. A lot of people might have bought that. So I know what they do most times. They rage bait, and then people buy their brands, like their products, so madly. But this particular one is very horrible, because how do you have 50 something people on ground without someone that look like me? They're not like us. See you all in my next video. Bye for now.